Welcome back. This is episode 16. We're talking about New World Order, some future predictions. While we're in between betas here, I figured make a new episode. And what are we going to talk about? Every time I look at the thumbnails or the name of the game or anything, it says New World, and I can't be the only one that's thinking once in a while when I look at it, New World Order. It begs the question to be asked. Is that what Amazon is implying here? Is that just a coincidence? The first person to really introduce the concept of the New World Order on a large scale that I'm aware of was Bush Sr. And so there's a lot of conspiracy theory that kind of revolves around the concept of a New World Order. And a lot of people are familiar with what this concept is. But for those that aren't, essentially a New World Order is like a world government, a one world government. And the reason why people talk about wanting to usher forth a New World Order with a one world government is because there's a lot of conflict, obviously, between perceptions and social normalities about things being banned or illegal or regulated, and things like that. So when it comes down to one world government, the first thing that comes to mind is in how they try to sell it is that one world government's going to be easier because there's less red tape. You don't have to dot as many I's, cross your T's as much. You don't have to, jump the rope as often, because in a one world government, there are no borders. So there's no citizenship, really. I'm not sure how they would break that down. Like, maybe you're like a citizen of, France or Italy, and but you're like, everybody's part of the New World Order, but like you have French citizenship, and when you're in France, you have French rights, and when you're American, you have American rights. But in a New World Order, all the laws would be the same universally, and then that doesn't make much sense, because if you look at the way the United States operates right now, is that the states pretty much create their own laws within a certain parameters, and do that by voting and passing new legislation. But in a New World Order, the idea is that everybody's on the same page, and therefore it's easier to use resources and allocate them, and you'll hit a higher efficiency. And that's the whole thought process behind Marxism, communism, fascism, socialism. If you've ever done any research on Marxism, Karl Marx was a famous communist, socialist, whatever you want to call him. And he wrote this series of books. He wrote a lot of books, but I believe one of them was called the Communist Manifesto. And it's basically like the communist version of Hitler's Mein Kampf. And when you talk to like socialists and communists, they'll often refer to the Communist Manifesto or Streetlight Manifesto, and they want to talk about how communism is the only way to have, an ideal and balanced society, because they claim that capitalism is evil and that it can't balance itself out. And while there are some truths in that, and a lot of that is opinion, personally what I believe is that it would be really hard to enforce the same laws everywhere in the world. Obviously, we're watching this kind of stuff unfold on a world stage, both domestic and internationally, where people's beliefs and laws differ almost entirely from ours. And to get them to see your perspective just by switching the laws is not typically how it's going to work. You're going to have to like slowly adjust those social norms to where the people actually accept these laws, because if you don't accept the law and you don't enforce the law is pointless, right? So anyways, need I digress? This whole New World Order thing. So, like, basically, the New World Order is comprised of, the one percenters. You've got a lot of people talk about the Illuminati, which is a Bavarian sort of cult. Supposedly starts out of, Germany in the Bavarian area, and Illuminati's in Latin is supposedly means like the bringers of light or knowledge, kind of like Lucifer is the bringer of light. So like the Illuminati is perceived as like the sort of evil demonic presence of control and power, like absolute tyrannical control, despotism, that kind of stuff. You're talking about some evil things here, and primary difference between primary difference between the Illuminati and like the American version, which would be the Freemasons, is what they always say is the saying between the two is that what's the difference between the Freemasons and the Illuminati? They say that the Illuminati do things, they justify the means by the end, and the supposedly Freemasons they don't do that. They always keep their composure. And what that means is that there's two different bases of thinking here, and from the Freemason basic thinking, which is more Americanized, it's thinking that morality, ethics, and your social code and laws are what make us civilized, and therefore that controls the society. And so what that means in a nutshell is that you have to do everything with integrity and honor, and you go about doing that by not lying and not manipulating and not taking advantage and being genuine. And the difference between the Freemasons and Illuminati is, first of all, the Illuminati don't have a country. There are a lot of people that will like give you the concept. They're like, oh, the Illuminati run the world. Well, perhaps, and maybe I know more than the average bear, but I would say that as far as like global influence goes, the Freemasons are obviously far more influential than the Illuminati. And Freemason is not like what's a secret society and you have to be voted into it. It's not like secret, because you could be just driving down the road and you'll see the sign from whatever state you're in, the state highway signs, and it'll show you a picture of the Freemason logo and tell you where the lodges are, just like it would with a Rotary Club or anything else. So it's it's an actual legitimate group. There's a lot of like I guess you call them conspiracy theories about like them being like evil bloodsuckers and adrenochrome and all this stuff, and I've actually met a lot of them, and that's not going on at all. It's more of like a mystic brotherhood, sort of like a fraternity is what they call it, and there's a lot of knowledge sharing and history and stories telling, and that's primarily what it is. It's kind of like Boy Scouts or Eagle Scouts for adults. There's a lot of social like government workers. There's a lot of like police officers, mayors, firefighters, EMTs, lawyers, mayors, all sorts of politicians and stuff. And a lot of them aren't very vocal or public about being part of the fraternity, because there's a misconception that everybody in it is evil, and a lot of that has to do with the whole Illuminati thing. So the Illuminati's thought process in a nutshell is it doesn't matter how I win as long as I win, and so that's more of like a Sith mentality. And on the contrary, the Freemason is more like the Jedi, and they're saying that you could win, but if you win in a cheap way, or it's dishonest, or there's no honor in it, then it's worse than just losing honorably. And that more coincides with the American, and I guess I'd even say kind of like samurai um, or Spartan concept of what it means to be a man and or a person. Um, so, New World Order, what does that all mean? We've seen a lot of like, there's different royal families and stuff, and people complaining about being royals and giving up their royal lineage and blah, blah, blah. And that's because, in part, they understand that being of royal lineage doesn't really mean anything for you unless you're the lucky one that's going to become the king or queen, or married to the king or queen, or, direct connection like childhood, parent, something. If you're not like the direct in lineage, then it's pretty much just an honorary title, because in a monarchy or patriarchy, but only the king or queen really holds power. It's like having a president without Congress or Senate. But these days, for example, the Queen of England, she doesn't control England. There's a parliament and they have their own government. And while she does have a great amount of influence, especially within Britain and London specifically, that you can't just, the Queen can't just impose her will on Europe. She can imply it. She can even be really stern about what it is that she's like making a choice or wanting to promote. But the government could go against it, because at the end of the day, it's an honorary title at this point. Now, obviously, there's a lot of wealth that comes with this, and that's really what is separating the, as you would call, the New World Order people versus the ordinary people. And the primary difference is wealth, because, the Queen of England obviously would be a worthy adversary for any country in, post-apocalyptic kind of Mad Max world, where everyone comes out of their billionaire bunkers, and, the Queen of England will be a force to be reckoned with in that scenario, just like any country would, or whoever is in charge of the crown. But without wealth, that would mean nothing, because I could be the king of Gadgistan, but it doesn't matter because there's no money and therefore there's no power. And, you could be a politician and you might have great political power, but you don't have the wealth. And so therefore it really is about wealth, because the wealth is who picks and creates the winners and losers. So a lot of everything has to do with sponsoring and marketing and advertising and things like that. So once a select amount of people get control of these marketing and promotion, just socials and communication, marketing, advertising in general, and we've got like big tech companies, for example, that fit that criteria, where they've pretty much dominated the whole market. You look at like Amazon, Walmart, all these big companies, they pretty much dominate the space. You wouldn't be able to just open up like a bookshop locally and compete with Amazon. You would guaranteed probably go out of business. So with that being in mind, it's always about power, but money is usually the final influence, and power is usually influenced by money. So now we've eliminated who is the New World Order. The New World Order are the extremely wealthy and or powerful, and they're either preparing for themselves, like a private sort of bunker. Russell Brand did like a special, these millionaire and billionaire doomsday bunkers, and they're like condos underground and stuff. So you could like buy a whole floor for like millions of dollars, and like your family would evacuate to this place in the event that there was like some sort of, you need shelter for whatever reason. So all that being said, there's going to be these sorts of colonies all over the world. They're kind of like a pilot or a test run for like space travel, colonizing, moon bases, stuff like that. Because you got to be able to have these things self-contained, underground, you know, completely off-grid for years and years and years. So there's a lot of pre-planning and high-quality parts and, you know, proper storage parameters and all sorts of regulators and valves and stuff like that, monitors. And these systems get really expensive. So, like, I'm trying to bring it back on track here. New World Order. So we're playing the game, New World. We're supposed to go out here and we're supposed to, you know, level up. So we're supposed to increase our power, and we've also got to increase our wealth. But ultimately the game comes down to who's the wealthiest the fastest, because when the game starts, and if you haven't played yet, you'll see in this next open beta or after launch when you play, that really the first people to get the most money and buy the first city are really the ones that control the server. And that's kind of like, it was kind of like a foot race to become the king of New World. And it makes me wonder what this New World's order is going to be like. And this is kind of like, you know, simulation theory, because this is very realistic. We're playing as a humanoid, and it's like a colonization of, you know, New World and stuff. And it's like a simulation of not only what people have done in the past and currently do, but what we plan to do in the future, outer space and on other planets, you know, colonizing. It's kind of like in our DNA. So what the New World Order is looking to accomplish is colonization. They want as many people as they can get working for them, making them wealthy and doing their bidding. And right now their bidding is that they want another planet. So, you know, it's not, I don't think it's like an organized pod where like these people specifically are the New World Order. I'm sure you talk about different, like the Carlyle group and, you know, that kind of stuff. I forget what the name of the one is with the flaming owl effigy in the woods. Oh man, I had drawn a blank. It's an Alex Jones thing, but there are, you know, different little cult groups of like hyper powerful, you know, titans of industry and like politicians and stuff, and they get together and obviously, you know, they make deals with each other and manipulate laws and all sorts of stuff for wealth and more power. And that's really what the New World Order is in a nutshell. So basically what I'm saying is there's two factions here. Eventually, countries, I think, are gonna have to be forced to sort of like morph into each other, like mergers, or like union almost. So what I mean by that is like North America is gonna eventually become like its own thing. You look at like Canada. Canada's more socialized. It has a larger, like democratic, left-leaning sort of voter base, and you know, the way that their society is set up is more socialist than an American society, and that's starting to move down from Canada through America. A lot of the northern states think and feel the same way as Canada. And so that stuff's starting to make its way down here. And, you know, the American parts are starting to, like, go through Canada, where people are wanting more, you know, religious freedom and, you know, right to run businesses, and they want lower taxes. And so eventually I feel like we're going to find, like, a medium where all these countries start kind of teaming up and morphing into like a larger country. And the other option is that we do the exact opposite, like Florida secedes from the United States, Texas becomes its own country, Florida becomes its own country, you know. And so like there starts to be more fragmentation and it gets more complicated. And that's probably a move in the wrong direction, at least for humanity, because the objective here is just to make life as rewarding and simple as possible. Simple doesn't mean easy or stupid or whatever. It just means simple. Sometimes, like Leonardo da Vinci would say, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So sometimes simplifying something is the most advanced thing you can do to a statement or to organizing something. So, we want to find simplicity. When I was younger, I had a coach that would always say, "KISS, keep it simple, stupid." And that's kind of the same thing. Keep it simple, stupid. Just simplify stuff. So you always want to simplify it, because that makes communication easier, and makes you thinking about it easier, organizing is easier, and executing it is easier. So you want to keep everything as simple as you can. And that's the mental thought process behind the New World Order, is that everything needs to become streamlined so that it can be easily regulated in a simple way with the most efficiencies and least amount of work possible. And what we see that in today is with corporate structures, franchises, corporations, things that are fully scalable. I've used McDonald's in the past, but I guess we'll just use McDonald's again. So everybody has McDonald's all around the world. They can all relate to this. So McDonald's has basically perfected the fast food drive-through American burger and fries. Some people might say, I like Burger King more. Five Guys is the best. Culver's has got the butter burgers for real. I love all the burgers, and all the places have stuff that they're better at than other places, but hear me out on this. If every country was like McDonald's, you put all the countries together, now there's McDonald's in every country, and they all have different laws, but generally they're the same. So they're fully scalable. McDonald's is in every country around the world. The government is going to eventually have to morph into the same sort of corporate, fully scalable international franchise sort of setup or layout. And the reason for that is because we're so horribly inefficient right now. There's surpluses in the world. The people that aren't using the batteries are the ones with all the materials for it under their land, and so we have a huge demand for lithium and cobalt, but we got to go to a different country, into an area that isn't developed, and build an infrastructure just to go collect the stuff ourselves. And obviously it's not like you and me out there. What I mean by ourselves is the companies will open up mines and stuff in the other countries. They pay these people at their local wage, which to us we would consider as slavery. But it's all relative. So that might be a good living for them, for whatever their cost of living is. And that's all relative. But long story short, the New World Order is the franchise of the world government, and it's fully scalable. And what that means is every government is going to become McDonald's franchise, and we're all going to have our own locations that might have slightly different menus and layouts and rules, but ultimately it's all McDonald's. And McDonald's will launch a new item, and all the stores have to follow suit, and then they're going to be able to, through their logistics, distribute whatever items they need for that new menu item to all the stores that are going to offer that new menu item. Right now they have the Sweetie meal. I guess it's a Big Mac and nuggets and sweet chili Thai sauce or something. I saw it really briefly. I didn't order it, but it looked good. I love Big Macs and stuff. If I were to make my own meal, it would be double quarter pounder made like a Big Mac. So I get basically a Big Mac with double quarter pounder meat, or a double quarter pounder with made up like a Big Mac with the Big Mac sauce and stuff. and it just doesn't have that middle slice of extra bread because like nobody really wants it anyways. And that's what I usually get, custom order. I get the I call it the Big Midge, so it's the Big Midge burger, but yeah, double quarter pounder made like a Big Mac. So basically all of these countries are now part of the New World Order. They're all like their own little country franchise, and we're already kind of looking at this. And who's leading this is who's in charge of the information of the platforms, and so that's big tech. You can tell that big tech has power over even the U.S. government at this point because they can just like delete the president and just be like, nah, you're not on our thing anymore. And there's nothing that they can do about that. They're like immune to it. So like these people are in charge of like what people are seeing where and at what frequency, and what they're not seeing also in the form of censorship. And so these are not only extremely wealthy people, but they have incredible influence that's never been paralleled in human history before. I would say the influence through people's phones is probably rivaling anything that we've seen in the past. I would even consider slavery. I would say that the way that we're reliant and addicted to our phones at this point is a form of slavery and or a form of abuse, because like now the human existence is like staring at this phone. Maybe you're on your phone right now and you're listening to me, and this is it's a tool for change and good, and you can obviously do a lot of good with technology, and that's what we want to focus on. Do as much good as we can. And I think a lot of people are afraid about the concept of the New World Order, but the reason why I feel like that's not going to happen, at least in my lifetime, is because I look at stuff that like happened this week, for example, with Afghanistan, and we were there for 20 years, put trillions of dollars into it, and we didn't make a difference. If anything, it's worse now. It's less stable. It's more of a threat. And that goes to show you that like forcing somebody else on the other half of the world to follow your rules and see things your way from your societal point of view is not something that you can't just do in one generation. You can't just colonize the whole world in one generation. When you look at how the world is split up now, and America's a melting pot because we're getting colonization from all over the place. But initially it was just those Europeans and Spaniards that went over, and the Native Americans that already lived in America that they stole it from. And everybody knows this story, so I don't even need to tell you about Native Americans getting ripped off. They've got some good deals now, but I still think ultimately they got ripped off. And I think everybody agrees with that. That's pretty common consensus at this point. It's their country. So, sorry, I cough. I've been getting some symptoms after the Joe Rogan experience. But I think I'm going to pull through. I'm getting a test on Saturday. So, hopefully I come back negative. But if I don't, it seems like he's doing all right, so I'll do fine. And yeah. All right, so New World Order. So if you made it this far into the thought process here, you're probably thinking, why does this guy know so much about it? It seems like he's spent a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff. I have done my research on this and virtually everything else just because I'm a nerd, and I've spent a decade just watching internet documentaries and everything you can think of on YouTube and just Google searching stuff, because I just love learning. And I love the internet because it's like you can just learn unlimited stuff. And you can also, the internet's our friend, because when there's censorship and or propaganda, it's with the internet as our tool, it's a lot easier to like get the real information at your fingertips. And you can discern what that real information is on your own, or you can find sources that you trust. Like, if you need health advice, you go talk to a real doctor, not somebody on YouTube. You can get, like friendly advice from somebody on YouTube, but if you need health advice, you go talk to a real doctor, And like, why would anybody listen to what I have to say about the New World Order? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and just expose myself, I guess. But I am basically that doctor. And what I mean by that is I actually, years ago, what is 2021 now? 2012, or maybe it was 2013. 13 or 14. 2013 or 2014, so like 6-7 years ago, I decided I had seen a lot of these. I'd seen National Treasure, that piqued my interest. Always been interested in like the Founding Fathers and American history. And so you see the Freemasons and stuff a lot in there, and you start to learn that a lot of the Founding Fathers and past presidents are Freemasons. And so it has sort of like this mystique, captivating sort of curiosity around it. And I thought that was fascinating. So I went in and found the local lodge and talked to some Masons in person, and they ended up convincing me to join. Well, they say that they don't recruit, but like, of course they're going to say good things about it when you go and talk to them. So I'm not active, but I am technically a Freemason. So I went through apprenticeship, and then I ended up receiving a bunch of threats and just kind of falling out. And I communicated that with them and the Grand Lodge, and they told me I was welcome back whenever I felt that I wanted to come back, anytime and anywhere. And that was really nice of them to send me that letter. But I just was fascinated at the time, so I thought, I'm going to go in here, see for myself what it's like, and maybe I'll make some friends, maybe I won't like it and I'll leave. And everyone always says, well, it's like a blood oath and you can never leave, and the only way to leave the Freemasons is in a box. Well, that's not true. I'm telling you firsthand. So I went in there. They do like a full vetting process. I would say that a lot of people would see it as even invasive at this point, because they come to your house and go through your house. And you basically got to meet virtually every high-ranking individual in that lodge, and they'll each interview you in a way, like a micro interview, and then they'll discuss you without you in the room as like a group. And once you've passed the background check and you let them in your house and they see what your living conditions are like and stuff, and you've done your interviews, then they vote on you. And this is where the term being blackballed comes from. So the voting process is like, for example, I'm outside of the actual lodge room and everybody else is in it, so I'm like the one guy that's not allowed to be in the room because I'm not a Mason at the time. And so we have to practice this stuff. They give you a master to mentor you. So I know there's a lot of people out there. I just saw a what's his name, Jake, the boxer that is the YouTuber guy, whatever his name is. I just saw a video of this guy said he quit his job and he wanted to work for Jake, and so he like snuck backstage with like a counterfeit paper, and he got in front of him and he was like starstruck. He didn't know what to say to the guy, so he says to this guy, Jake, hey, I want a job. And so he asks him, what are you good at? And he's like, I don't know, but I just want to have a job. And he's like, okay, well, if you're not good at something, why would I hire you? And the guy kind of like didn't really, like, he was so focused on executing, like getting there to talk to him, that when he got there to talk to him, he didn't know what to say to him. So he just kind of like, fanned the shot. And the Jake guy seemed cool because he was like, no, I'm really interested because like not everybody just approaches me and asks these things. And he could sense that, maybe this guy needed help, or he was like, really motivated to try and get an opportunity. And he teed it up for him and he missed it. But anyways, the reason why I'm talking about this guy. So the guy goes on to say that if you watch the full clip, that he doesn't have, any mentors in his life. And then Jake says, he's like, look at my life. I've made a lot of F-ups and I need a mentor. I need somebody to teach me, show me the ropes. And the only person I have is my friends and my brother, I think he said. I don't know a lot about this guy. I've only on the surface know that he exists and is successful. And I guess he's doing UFC now. And that made me think about there's not a lot of places that you could go, especially with the whole COVID quarantine thing, that you can go and get mentored by somebody that's going to be worth a damn, that actually knows what they're talking about and is genuinely there just to help you. And one of the few resources that you could go that a lot of people don't know about is the Mason Lodge. And I know initially a lot of people have a bad rap about that, but everybody can have their own experience. But in my experience, they say that they're welcoming to anyone. Now, while they do separate by gender, and what I mean by that is you can only be a Freemason if you're a man. It used to be that you had to be a white man, and now it's just that you have to be a man. And if you want to be a woman and participate, and or if you're married to a Mason, like your husband is a Mason, you can be a Eastern Star, which is like a sisterhood, and they're called sisters, and they call each other witches and stuff. But it's all in good fun, and it's not like they're casting curses or using voodoo dolls or anything. It's like a good sort of magic, in this game, like healing magic. So, women can be included in their own way, but it still gives that privacy of it being like a gentleman's group only. So if you're a gentleman, you're older than 18, and you're looking for some sort of mentorship, and it's not going to cost you anything, and you'll learn a lot, and you believe in a greater being, or God, or great architect of the universe, or Gatu, or the being, or whatever you want to call it, as long as you believe in a greater power and you want free mentoring like that, that's a great place to go. There's a lot of veterans that are there, like I said, police officers, paramedics, mayors. You'd be surprised who you meet. I've met guys from high-level intel companies, tech companies, military contractors, even informants and spies and stuff. There's all sorts of cool people in these groups, and it's a really good way to get in touch with the older generation. Now that I've gone down this path, and I've explained that I was voted in unanimously, because if you get one vote, there's 30 guys that vote. If a single person blackballs you for any reason at all, you're done, and you can never go back and try to join again. So I didn't get blackballed. I got joined. They swore me in. No, they didn't make me do a blood oath. Nobody cut me. There was no weird satanic anything like that. There's symbology and symbolism, but there's nothing demonic. There's no sacrifices or rituals or anything like that. And it was really cool to be part of, and they have a whole outfit. They give you an apron, and you gotta go here, do this, say this, think this kind of thing. It's it's really just sort of like a religious sort of format or experience, but all religions are welcome, and it's kind of crafted by all religions, but mainly it has a focus behind the sort of Christian Catholicism, but everybody's welcome. And so what's interesting about that is it's kind of like the college world civilizations and Western Civ and religions and histories class in college level, because you're getting like all sorts of different people, like coexistence together. So you've got Jewish people, Christian people, Muslim people, all sorts of people, all sorts of religions. The only thing you don't have is there's no agnosticism, there's no atheism. So you have to believe in a greater being, and that's like the requirement other than getting voted in. And all that being said, there's a lot of people there that you could like learn from and be mentored by. I was a little young at the time. I was in my early 20s. I was the youngest person there ever, I think. I don't think that maybe there was somebody younger after me, but at the time I was the youngest to get voted in there. And I spent a couple months studying, and my master that was my mentor was teaching me how to like read their ciphers and their languages and stuff, because they've got like a cipher book. Like if you ever use like a decipher ring from like your cereal box or whatever, it's like a Playfair cipher kind of thing. You can basically like send encrypted messages right in front of people and they'd have no idea. And so like when you think about cryptocurrency, you think everything is like, it's all encrypted with like letters and numbers and a code. That's the same technology, or I guess organizational pattern for information that the Masons teach you. So they'll teach you how to read. I could look at a page that has letters on it, and to you it would look like gibberish, but to me it would be like an encyclopedia, because I already know what letters mean what words. It's kind of like a key and a lock. And so like if I look at this page of just nonsense letters based on their composure, if they're uppercase, lowercase, and the punctuation and conjunctions and things, they mean different things. And so what I mean by that is like, it might be like lowercase t, uppercase C, lowercase I, lowercase f. And you're like, I don't know what that means. ICIF, and then I'm like, or TCIF, and I would look at it and say, the cat is fat. But you wouldn't know that unless you already knew that the cat is fat is an answer, or like a key. So I might look at lowercase t, uppercase C, lowercase I, lowercase f, and to you, you see tikfs, but to me it says the cat is fat. So that's what ciphering is. And they have books and books and books that you can only read if you've been taught by word of mouth in person by a master. And what's really interesting about this art process, I would say it's more of like an art form, is that it is not written down anywhere. This is strictly word of mouth and memorization. So when you look at a Bible-sized book of ciphered letters, there's no, okay, turn to page 43 to see what line 3 means. You need to memorize everything up to that point, and they practice with you until you memorize it, like verbatim, kind of like you're saying your phone number. You got to have it like that memorized before you move on to the next page. And so you're building like a database or a memory bank in your brain, like a folder. And you can't actually read the book unless somebody who already memorized the book teaches you what it says. And that's encryption or ciphering at heart. And that allows privacy in a message sending or information transfer, where only the proper person can understand, decipher, and receive the message or information from the sender if they already have the key to deciphering. Now, this was like one of the main reasons why we won the Revolutionary War. It's not like the biggest reason, but it's a big contributing factor that we were able to to communicate in Masonic ciphers, and that's how we beat the British, because they would intercept the couriers or the messengers, and they'd take the message and break the seal and read it, and kill the messenger often, or return them as get like a ransom for them or whatever. But yeah, being able to communicate and other people not being able to read it is super valuable, really important. And that's what all of our technologies are doing now. That's what our money is starting to do with the cryptocurrency, serial numbers and stuff. So it's just like all that kind of stuff. So they teach you this process to understand what encryption and ciphering is, how to read it, how to use it, and then eventually how to teach other people. I didn't get that far. I had unfortunately somebody that was unstable locally figure out that I was a Freemason, and they kept attempting to do serious bodily injury to me. They kept calling me the reptilian overlord, and God told them to kill me, and all this stuff. It was very unstable. Obviously, there's like police involved, but it was crazy. And so I just took a step back for a while and ended up moving and just not getting back into it, because I just was focused on other stuff at the time. But like I said, and I saw that video and I thought about that guy, and he looks pretty like tore up, because he says he just left his job and he was making, I wish I was making 100,000 at 22. That's crazy that you left that job. You must have really hated it. But I see this guy, and it looks like to me, him and a lot of other people, there's this crisis on our hands of like, people need mentorship, they need tutoring and training, and just kind of like role models. And if you don't have anywhere else to look, that's a really good place to look. And you could be dirt poor, whatever color you are, whatever belief that you have, like, you can go there and talk to them. They're genuine people. They're not going to like steal your adrenochrome or something. They're good people that are like there to help. They do a lot of charity and philanthropy and stuff. And like, of course, I know the fraternity's powers are spread far and wide and deep, and it's integrated in governments all throughout the world, and it has some serious power as far as groups go of people. And I wouldn't lump it in as a group of bad people necessarily. I wouldn't say that they're bad. The Illuminati are the bad ones. The Illuminati are the ones that want to have you in people's zoos. Well, they get to do whatever they want in mass excess, and I guess the proper term would be gluttony. But so what do we do with all this information? There's a new world order. People are talking about ushering in the new world order. I think it's a lot harder in execution than it is in thought process. And what I mean by that is that it would be a lot harder for somebody to accomplish that than to just think about accomplishing it, because there's a lot of major levers and switches that have to be pulled and pressed for you to get the whole world to agree to a one world government. I mean, that would be a really incredible feat to even accomplish that if you wanted to. And I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. But to ease your mind of people out there that are worried about it, because I know there's a lot of people that are like severely worried about the New World Order. It's not coming out of the Freemasons. It's coming out of the big tech. Big tech has basically owns communication at this point. You're not allowed to buy or sell or go anywhere or talk to anyone if you don't have big tech. You're not paying them. It's kind of like it's like privatized telepathy at this point, because to not have internet and a phone is to be like third world at this point. And when you do have a phone, it gives you so much information and power at your fingertips that to compete with somebody that doesn't have one, they're like virtually obsolete. Now there's something to be said for like these new generations are starting to grow up and like they have no real life skills and they're really good at using phones, but that's it. They don't know how to like make a grilled cheese or like mow the lawn, take the trash out, or balance a checkbook. But they're like super good at TikTok, right? And those are useful skills for the future in first world countries and stuff. But my point is if you took two identical people, like a clone, that had exact everything the same, and one of them got a cell phone with internet and the other one didn't, it would be an astronomical difference. You would have unlimited potential on one side, and the other side it's just like whatever human potential is on like a manual single basis. Now when you look at like these companies, they operate with immunity. You can't sue these companies, you can't hold them accountable. They're allowed to silence you, which is an infringement on your right to be heard and to speak. And so these companies now have more power than governments. So it seems that the New World Order's training wheels or the gears are already in motion. And I think that the training device is the phone, because it's literally like, I look at like how they use dog training, and they have the little buzz collars and the bark collars and invisible fences, and you train them by punishing them for bad things with the little zap. And I know it's not the humane way, and people will disagree with this, but it's just like human history that I'm talking about. So like you negative reinforce, no, that's bad, or you give them a zap or a little tap on the nose for being bad, and when they're good you give them a treat. And like cell phones are already doing that for people. Well, like if you don't agree with mainstream anything right now, if you're spreading misinformation, if you're discriminating, if you're just hating on people, then you're going to get silenced. And that is essentially a shock collar that I can buzz you in any country that you're in. Because if you're in Czechoslovakia and you say the American president sucks, and the CEO of Twitter thinks that socialism's cool and that the president is the greatest, and he disagrees with you, he could just silence you forever or just delete your account. And that to me is, not only is that a shock collar for the New World Order, it's unconstitutional, it's inhumane, and it's going to lead to genocidal behavior, because now you've got the people that are in control and the people that are to take the orders, and it's very much starting to look like a sort of pharaoh and slave scenario where people are worshiping like these executives and I guess inventors, if you could call them that. And that's idolatry. That's it. You're worshiping idols. So like, in ancient books, they, make a bull and God doesn't like them worshiping the bull, so they smite it. We're starting to see that with people. And basically like the internet and these tech companies are starting to play God. If you don't agree with what their thought process is, and they just smite you. And that's the shock collar for the New World Order. And then the way that they give you treats is that if you agree with them and you're a good little boy and you do everything you're told and you fit in all of their checks and balances, then they give you exposure and therefore success, power, wealth, understanding. Thanks for hanging out. See you.